And now we will come to the last talk in this block from Alessandro Pistillo from BASF. He started as a chemical engineer and is now the director for sustainability and digital strategic projects at BASF's biggest chemicals producer in the world. And today he will talk about how digital product passports can be an enabling driver for the sustainable transformation.
Thank you, Kai. Thanks, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. And today I will offer a sweet and brief dive into the topic of digital product passport, something that you may have heard of or may not. So perhaps in that case you will learn something. And why digital product passport will be important and more important in the future is because let's assume you have a sustainable product, right? And the question is, what does sustainable mean, right? But let's assume you have a sustainable product. You do want to show that your product is sustainable to a consumer if you are in a B2C space, or to a procurement manager if you're in a B2B space. And how can you do it efficiently without having a digital ecosystem behind? That's where digital product passport come into play. So essential to drive sustainable transformation in supply chains. Let's start with the why, right? Why do we need a digital product passport? And just imagine a world where, first of all, sustainability has a meaning and there is a common language behind. So you can compare product based on sustainability features. And just imagine a world where the consumer, or so like you and me, but also a procurement manager, can compare with data one options to another option. And imagine a world where those pieces of data are also verified or certified behind. So heard from Martin before. So you have a verifiable claim behind. And imagine a world where, thanks to this enablement, data enablement, fundamentally a recycler or recycling company can understand whether and how to recycle a material or an object or a system which is coming back to perhaps a second life, and also can inform a consumer about what is the recycled content or a biological content, bio-based content within a certain item that you purchase. In this world, or let's say a world like this, does need a tool behind, which is called digital product passport, which is also a centerpiece of the we said the moonshot moment of Europe, right? So the Green Deal has the DPP, the digital product passport, as a centerpiece of multiple regulations. So let's give a little bit more context into that. So digital product passport in the regulatory and voluntary landscape. First question that typically comes, am I affected or not, right? Digital product passport in the regulated space are coming related to typically consumer products. And the first type of products affected by digital product passport will be the battery in 2027. Many more will be coming related to other type of European regulations like ESPR, the Eco Design for Sustainable Product Development, or the CPR, the Construction Product Regulations, or the toy regulations, or the detergents regulations. All these regulations from the Green Deal will be coming with DPP requirements or data requirements. Is this just a EU regulation story, Of course not. We already see that in the case of batteries, other jurisdictions are following suit. And if you think about also beyond batteries, you probably have read that China also plans to launch a lot of DPP systems in the coming years, even more than what actually the ambition level in Europe is. But it's not just a regulatory game. It's also a voluntary game. There is quite a number of voluntary projects and initiatives. Think about, probably have heard of Catena X, Factory X, Manufacturing X. You will learn later about Chem X. But think about also the EPD, right? EPD systems that Andrea just mentioned. Those are also data systems which collect and display in a structured and standardized manner sustainability features of a product. These are not operating in a regulated space. They are in a voluntary space that are also a way to enable and empower consumer and procurement managers. But then the next question that typically comes, when I am affected? Here is just an attempt just to put in the timeline, right? Which product will be affected in Europe by a regulation requiring digital product passports. And here you see first coming batteries in 2027, but already starting in 2028, you will see textiles, so apparel, tires, steel, some typologies of energy products, construction products coming, right? And then later on, mattresses, furniture, and many, many, many more. It's definitely a wave which is going to impact a lot of companies, also here, most likely, and we will impact also consumers, starting with Europe, of course. Okay, so now we've learned that DPP are coming. They will be required to place products into the market in Europe. You have learned when they're likely coming. The next question is, what is that, the digital product passport? If I want you to take home one key message, this is the one. A digital product passport is not just a tool. It's not just a tech. There's not just a tech layer. A digital product passport is also a content layer. Let's dive into that. The regulator uses sometimes the wording DPP system and DPP data. I prefer to use tech layer and content layer, but they are basically the same. So the tech layer or the DPP system defines, for example, unique identifier, so how product should be clearly identified. It will define data carrier. Am I using D or am I using a QR code to extract data? Or it will define access rights, data authentication, data security aspects. All this stuff is what is contained in the tech layer. And you may ask yourself, who is defining this? In Europe, there is a standardization request to send Senelec called JTC24, which will define horizontally for Europe these aspects of the digital product passports. And the results are expected at the end of this year. But that's the tech. Eventually, the value is perhaps less in the tech and is more in the data. Also, in your personal passport, what counts is not the tech, not much the tech, but which kind of data you have inside your passport. And this is something which the regulations will define in the delegated acts. So it's not a standardization request, JTC 24 defining this, but the delegated acts of the respective regulations. Or voluntary schemes that industries or initiatives will define. All this may happen also in collaboration with standardization bodies like ISO or Sensenelec. So, Digital Product Passport is tech and content. Which type of content? The regulated passport will focus mainly on sustainability type of information. Here is just a long list selection. Unfortunately, only for batteries is relatively clear what is coming in. But for most other DPPs, we don't have the delegated acts already visible, so we don't know exactly which type of data will be foreseen for one or the other product in the upcoming digital product passports. However, we can infer that very likely we will have data like the product carbon footprint, right? We learned about that. Perhaps some aspects of the environmental footprint, right? So other impact categories, so beyond carbon. There will be requirements about, for example, recycled content, reused content, and so on and so forth. Recyclability, reusability, and so on and so forth. So this type of data will be defined in the delegated acts, product by product. So some product may require a digital product passport containing some type of data, and some other product may require some other pieces of data. But fundamentally, there is no limit in which type of data that you could put in a digital product passport. It could be also something which has nothing necessary to do with the sustainability, strictly speaking. Think about the case of the battery pass. The battery passport will also contain data like the state of health of the battery, which is not something which you could say strictly relate to sustainability, but it's a feature of the level of degree of performance that this type of item can or has at that particular point of time. You may also ask yourself, in the digital product passport, I may need to disclose secrets, right? Company-owned secrets. Luckily, this is not the case, right? So there will be also different type of access rights to different type of piece of data. So if you are perhaps a regulator, you may have access to a longer list of data. If you aren't, you may have access only to a more restricted amount of data. So that gives a little bit of an understanding of the tech layer and the content layer. And let's make now a very short case study of the role of the chemical industry in the digital product passport and the initiative Chemix. So why I'm here fundamentally. Well, first of all, chemical industry is by default at the beginning of multiple value chains, right? So if you have any piece of any material in your hand or you wear any piece of material, there is high chance, actually 95% chance that it contains chemical input, which means that if any industry will ever want to issue a digital product passport, they will need data from the chemical industry. So we need to prepare as a chemical industry. And how to prepare? We need to prepare by, we decided to prepare by collaborating. Why competing on this, right? So we need to define a clear level play field to define how a digital product passport for chemical raw materials and intermediates should be done. And therefore, several chemical companies and tech companies and associations also have joined forces in a public funded project called Chemix, which belongs to the manufacturing umbrella, sponsored by the EU and the German government. And the task of Chemix is to enable a DPP harmonization for chemical materials. This is just an example, visual example. Just imagine it's very clear what is a tire, what is a piece of furniture, what is a textile. But the more you go backward in the value chain, the border starts to get blurred. And in fact, you may have the same chemical building blocks to manufacture a paint or to manufacture a detergent. Therefore, you can understand that from a chemical industry's perspective, and for that sake, the same would apply for a steel industry and other basic material industry, it's super important that the data of a passport for chemical material should be harmonized. Because if you start to define, let's say, a product carbon footprint differently for a paint or for a car or for a detergents, how can you imagine that this can work backward in the value chain? It will never work. The numbers will not add up anymore. You will not close the balances anymore. So harmonization of metrics definition for sustainability and circularity is the key driver of the project ChemX, which, I mean, this is just a more complicated slide to describe in a schematic fashion how a DPP is structured. So it contains a tech layer at the bottom and at the top, dealing with the identification of materials and companies, and a verification layer on the top, a layer to integrate with other applications or with other DPPs down in the value chain, and in the middle, the content layer. So how the metrics, sustainability and circularity are defined. All these boxes have a working group in the initiative ChemX dealing with every single piece of it. And the outcome, that's my last slide, will be the definition of a digital material passport for chemical inputs and chemical material, which is hopefully something like a game changer for product information transfer from the chemical industries to all the industry which requires chemical inputs. A system which will be technology agnostic, will be harmonized in the sense of harmonizing and defining in an harmonized way how the metrics for sustainability and circularity are for chemical inputs are defined, irrespective of what is the final application. It will be respecting data confidentiality, so we'll respect this one up, one down principle. Perhaps we can get into this detail later. And more far and foremost, will enable and empower consumers like me and you eventually also to get accurate and comparable data for sustainability performance of products that we may purchase in the supermarket or online. Thank you very much. Hopefully I helped to demystify the topic of digital product passport.
Thank you very much, Alessandro.
Thank you very much.
For these insights into the digital product passports.